Hello and welcome to Clueless Conversations. This is a show where I speak to friends, entrepreneurs, or any public figure for that matter about their journey with regards to money, life, entrepreneurship, and everything else. Our guest today is none other than Mr. Ankur Variku. Ankur is a very well-known entrepreneur, but I discovered Ankur Variku as a creator first and then as the entrepreneur after that. Ankur makes really useful, smart content about life, money, entrepreneurship on his YouTube channel as well as his Instagram. So you guys should 100% check it out if you enjoyed this conversation. The links are in the description and as the pinned comment. I really enjoyed having this conversation. This is the first of many such entrepreneurial life, money conversations. If you guys enjoyed, then let me know in the comment section and make sure you hit like so as many people get to watch this. And as always, make sure you subscribe so anytime any videos that I make that are useful to you, it will just show up on your feed. On that note, enjoy the conversation. Welcome to Clueless Podcast. Today we have Ankur Variku as our first guest. Ankur, you are the first guest. Thank you for
Awesome.
being here. Yeah.
That means a lot.
Yeah.
I would like to thank my dad and mom and my parents.
Yeah, that's because
Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan, and I'm so glad that you consider me worthy to be on this podcast. I've loved the conversation so far. I should say this, and it's your choice whether to put it or not. You don't come across as a 30-year-old at all.
Oh, really?
This will definitely get cut off, but you get caught. My impression of you always was from a distance, right? And that's a persona that got created, AIB, and exactly. So only when I got to know you and I've liked the time that we spent, you're far wiser than I am assumed you to be.
Then I let on.
And there's a lot more content in you than I thought that there was. and
Why would I keep this in? This is going to be top comment. I already know it. A lot of people don't know the content that you're making. You're already doing what I want to do, which is bring in knowledge in the most accessible manner. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're up to today?
It's weird when people ask, how's the lockdown been for you and so on, because almost with the massive amount of guilt that I can gather, I tell people, it's been terrific. I don't even know how to say it because there's so much happening all across us that it just feels like insane privilege to even speak about this. Yeah. So I've been spending my time on three things. Number one is creating content, and that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years. It started serendipitously, and I'll walk you through that if you wish to. And it's now taken a shape of its own. And what I love is that I'm there on every platform, and every platform requires me to treat the content very differently. So YouTube will be very different from TikTok, will be very different from LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and so on. And mostly the content is about my experiences being an entrepreneur. That's what I've learned the most. It's where I have truly grown as an individual. So I feel that I observe life very keenly. I'm a very curious individual, and that gives me the strength to observe something which seems like commonplace and normal, but just draw a lot from it because I approach it with a very different angle. Through that, what happened in the lockdown is I created this online webinar series. I call it the Future Founders Conference. Essentially, anyone who wants to become a founder and is clueless about how to go through it, or has been badly prepped by the media and by Twitter content, is this is where you come and get your bullshit sorted.
Fantastic. We're going to do this webinar on live stream.
It's a very long, it's an 8-part series, and it gets in there. But
you don't know how long I can live stream. I can live stream for 8 hours.
You've done that. Yes, I saw that. Yeah. So that's the first part. The second part is where I spend time with first-time entrepreneurs, actively and one-on-one, in helping them hopefully avoid the same mistakes that I made. And that's where I invest. That's where I mentor. That's where I coach. Specifically around three things: building a team, building a culture, retailing, engaging talent. That's something I think I know better than most people in this country. Second is product market fit, which is going through the grind, just showing them the mirror, like just being true to the basics of what it takes to create a business out of a product. And third, something that's very rarely spoken about, but I actively think about and think not enough conversation happens, is the founder mindset itself. This entire mentality that you need to be the Superman and Superwoman wearing the red underwear over your pants, and that's who the founder is. It's just so fucked up on so many counts. It is extremely hard. It can get into massive personal, professional problems that you didn't anticipate, and no one talks about these. Yeah.
This founder mentality, I keep seeing these Twitter threads about founder has to be this and this and this, and this is the time to lead, and during a crisis is the most important time, and if you're not leading from the front, then etc, etc. Almost makes it seem like doomsday is around the corner if you're not an alpha, let's go getting, crushing over people to get what you want, because that's how progress is done, right? Progress is not polite. Progress is extremely impolite, right? Where do you think that comes from? The branding around the brutal founder, and why do you think that's untrue?
I think it just comes from popular culture. Yeah. No one wants to believe that to become a successful founder, you don't have to be special, because that's not aspirational. You would want to believe that Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, they have something special that I aspire to become. Like, I'll have to become them to become that successful. Because if the story is, you know what, you don't have to become anyone, you're fucking yourself. And if you were to just go out, be vulnerable and be comfortable with that vulnerability, you can do a lot more than to pretend to someone else. You're like, yeah, that's fucked up. I've done that and I've got hurt and badly broken and bruised. Clearly, it's not going to work. And that's not the right way to do it. So it's just that heroism that is ingrained in our culture, that fight to karna padega na boss. मतलब तो लड़की ऐसे थोड़ी मिल जाएगी, आसानी से थोड़ी मिल होगा कि you be the nice guy and you just said, hey, I love you. And it just comes from personal experience that that's clearly not true. It's one massive survivor bias. What we read off in the media are all those who made it.
What is true though?
Personally, for me,
the caveat being true is what everyone's experience is. I'm asking what Ankur's experience has been and what does he think is true for him.
I generally think that entrepreneurship is not for everybody. I say this because entrepreneurship is, in my opinion, Tanmay, the most brutal form of self-discovery. Here's what I mean by that. You're never going to buy a product from a company just because the founder is from IIT. You're never going to buy a product from a company because the founder has been through personal distress.
Unless you're a VC. In case you've already bought it. You don't even know you bought it.
Exactly. You're like, take the money. You're not going to do that if the founder's not drawn a salary for the last 6 months, or gone through a divorce, or has laid off people. You don't feel anything. Like, the market is a fucking market. It doesn't care two fucks about who you are, where you come from, what you do. And for the first time in most people's life, they are subjected to a level of democratic scrutiny which doesn't depend on where they've come from, what they've done in the past. It's just brutal. Does your product work for me or not? That is very difficult for people to consume.
It is very different from content creation, where likability is 90% of the game.
True, because you're the face.
You're selling yourself and your story. Yes. More than the actual content that you're making.
Absolutely. No, which is why if you were just pleasant and the video is just brilliant and it's edited, it's tight, it's sharp, you could be just going through platitudes and people are like, fuck, this is brilliant. Like, this is the shit. That, I think, is one, which is, it's not for everybody.
Which would be great if founders could do ads, which is, guys, Diwali is coming up. You don't know the shit I've been through. Just fucking... Shit I've been through is a discount code. Just apply it. You'll get 30% off. Like, the discount code should be hardships, right?
Yes,
should not slept for 11 months. Like, that's the discount code. This feature led to divorce. That's the discount code.
Yeah, that'd be so awesome, by the way. It's giving me ideas, because every feature released, if you attached it to the personal giveaway that you had to, that would make it for such a story, man. यहाँ मेरी बेटी ने मुझे बोला कि आप मुझे कभी attention नहीं देते हो.
Entrepreneurs use it also. I have come from hardship. It's used. It's used often as well.
Yeah.
Yes. And I have seen people also make some decisions based on that, which is apne desh ki company.
That storytelling is just, it's smart. It's opportunistic. People have to buy into that, emote to it to even make sense.
And even for that story to be a little true, that needs a little bit of, like, your spirit can't be brittle.
I think this is the most fascinating and powerful fact that I've learned about life, which is, if there were 2 Olympic gold medalists, one of whom came from no privilege, worked their ass off, literally struggled, and then made it, and the other one was born into privilege, went to the top schools, was a top athlete, had every facility available for them on earth, we would always love the one who went through the struggle, despite the fact that being an Olympic gold medalist is fucking hard. It doesn't matter whether you're born into privilege or not. It is just insanely hard to be the best in the world. But we just gravitate towards the story which is of struggle. We just find ourselves in that.
One thing I just noticed is you have a quote or an example or an anecdote for almost everything, right? So I know Ankur Warikoo, the content creator. Like, I've known you since the time you've started making a lot of content. I don't know how many people would know Ankur Warikoo, the entrepreneur. Can you tell me a little bit about where have you come from? What company did you start? How did you make this transition? Can you take me a little through that?
Sure. I graduated out of business school way back in 2006, Tanmay, and then I joined management consulting, which was a dream job. Like it's the job that I did
on right now. All right.
Yeah.
Let's get to the meaty part.
And then one fine evening, I'm meeting with a batchmate of mine from business school, and he's like, "I'm working on an idea. I want to talk to you about it." I was like, "Sure. What's it called?" And he said, "It's called secondshadi.com."
Okay.
And I was like, is it what I think it is? And he's like, yeah, man.
Obvious. It's actually about investment platform.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a Bitcoin. It's a cryptocurrency, actually.
Yeah, it's a cryptocurrency. I just named it to just get the hackers out of there. I was like, yeah, it is a matrimonial website for people to get married again. And there's so many people who get divorced and widowed in India. So it's a platform for them. And I was like, fuck, that's a brilliant idea, man. How did you think about that? And he said, no, my dad thought about this. So I was like, okay, interesting. Is there a way that I can help? And that started. So for 1 year, while I was in a consulting job, I actually was what I back then called a part-time entrepreneur, which today I realize is an oxymoron. There's nothing like a part-time entrepreneur. Either you're one or you're not. And in 2009, I quit my consulting job to join Second Shadi full-time. And we built that. It was a fun ride, but of course the market was small and so on and so forth. So we ran into classic problems. But the big one that came out of there was the site called Gaadi.com. And Gaadi.com very quickly became a massive hit. Like, you want to buy a new car, it'll be about specs and photographs and videos and and sell your used car or buy a used car. It was a platform.
So wait, so you ran Gaadi.com?
So there were 3 of us, all from the same business school that ran that. And in 2010, I left that because Gaadi went to another entity. And that's when I was thinking of what next to do. And I got in touch with this company called Groupon. And Groupon had started in 2008 in Chicago. It was a rage. They were setting up flags all across the world, and India was one of them. So I got in touch with them. They liked me. I liked them. So I started the Groupon India business in 2011. First employee, first office, everything. And did that for 4 years. And in 2015, we did something rather crazy. We realized that Groupon had its own share of problems to solve in US and Europe, and the attention they were paying to India was minimal. We believed in the India opportunity a lot. I was convinced that this is the market to be. So we went to Groupon Global and we asked them, we want to buy the Groupon India business from. And their first reaction was, fuck off. What are you talking about? We're a publicly listed company. You're 100% subsidiary. This shit doesn't happen. But we pulled it off. We partnered with Sequoia. We bought the Groupon India business, and that became Nearby, which started in 2015, continues to run. I was the CEO and co-founder until October of last year. That's been the gist of my journey so far.
How can you leave your baby? What does that even mean? I don't even know how does one do that?
So everyone's asked me this question. Almost everyone. It's like, why the fuck would you do that? And my response there, Tanmay, is it's actually the best gift that an entrepreneur can give themselves. And here's why. I have my equity vested. I have a great team that can take care of the business on a daily basis and doesn't require me anymore. The company is profitable. It's on its own feet and it's doing whatever it has to and doing it well. Me investing my day-to-day time in that is really poor leverage. Me being there is not going to create a disproportionately higher outcome than me not being there. It just is the smartest thing to do. Of course, that's not to say that after X years, I cannot go back or whatever the case may be.
Sorry, I want to delve further into this. But there is an understanding of time and the value of time here that I think a lot of people don't understand. Can you talk a little bit more about investing your time there further? Why is that not a good idea? Because
the way that I think about this is the only goal in my life has been to increase the value of my time. Here's what I mean by that. When I was in class 10th or 11th, I used to travel 30 kilometers to Old Delhi Chandni Chowk market to buy notebooks because I saved $10. And that was a really big deal for us because we didn't come from a family of means. When I was in the US, instead of buying my music, I used to spend insane hours on torrent equivalents, downloading shit and blah, blah, blah. That's what was important. When I graduated from business school, I went to 4 or 5 showrooms to buy my first car, making sure that किसी ने वो एक mat free दे दो, एक वो कुछ headlight का free दे दो, shit like that. But what you realize is that essentially the calls that you're taking are constantly equating your time with money. Now, when you are in a salaried job, your quantification of time and money is already set by someone else.
The salary,
right? Yeah. So you can calculate your cost per day, per hour, per whatever. It's surprising how many people don't do that.
No, people don't. I know a
Yeah.
majority don't. I know I didn't. Say you get 40,000 rupees a month for 8 hours a day for 23 days a month. You
Yeah.
can literally, your hourly cost can be figured out like this. If you're watching this
Exactly.
right now, please calculate yours. And then apply this to decisions that you make based on how much time is that decision either going to save you or cost you. And just
Correct.
apply the appropriate money value to it. This is a country where 5 hours standing in a line to get a 300 rupee discount makes more sense. Even though for the 5 hours you could be making a lot more money.
Exactly. That's how we used to actually run meetings at Nearby. If a team is asked to come up with, say, a presentation and they do a shitty job, my comment was, you fucking just lost 25 lakhs for this company. I could have cut a check of 5 lakhs, given it to the best fucking agency in this country, and they would have come up with a better job faster than you morons who did that for 25 lakhs. But no one thinks like that, right? So we just, the way we treat time is as if it's unlimited. Every day we get 86,400 rupees in our pockets and we fucking just throw it away. Like literally. Netflix, le le tu 2,000, and YouTube, tu le le 2,000, and like Sona, tu le le 10,000, and whatever, right? We wouldn't do that with money, but we do that with time because we just feel we're not paying for it. But we're always paying for it. So the question in my head was, if I spend 8 hours every day, and it's not 8 because when you're a founder and CEO, it's never 8 hours a day.
It's never 8 hours. It's at least 18.
Yeah, right? So if I'm doing that, is that quantum of investment going to make any difference to the company? And am I better off spending that time somewhere else that still allows the company to get closer to the outcome that it would have got with me, but I get to do something else and build even more value come out of it?
Yeah, so makes sense. You've been making content for a while now. I genuinely think in this space, which is, talking about, life, career, entrepreneurship, money, you've spent more time with people and you understand more about what the problems are. What is the one thing this generation needs to understand about time and money?
The only thing that I would tell them is to actually find the relation between time and money. Here's the truth, Tanmay. The truth is, our parents did not have the luxury to even go down that path. It was fucking survival. Bacche ki fees, ghar ka khana, kapde.
So
it wasn't about Netflix ka ye wala account le ya ye wala le. Because of that, there was no upbringing, no conversation that was centered around time and money and the relationship. There's an entire generation that has been raised with no concept of time and money and the interlink. So what you're doing through this channel is speaking to them in a way that they understand and have never been spoken to, in a way that they will be like, fuck, like dimag phad gaya.
For people who have lived this way, I've been, touchwood, very lucky that I got exposed to people who made me understand these ideas slightly earlier than everybody else. And it really blows people's mind. I almost feel sad for the previous generation that they spend so much of their time. Like, I would often make jokes about my mum. I was setting up my room in my first house and I wanted a Daikin AC and I wanted a really expensive mattress. Really expensive, 60,000 rupee mattress. It's the most expensive thing in the house by far. There's nothing else in the house. And we just fought and fought for over a week about this mattress. It was just tana after tana. Who buys a mattress for 60,000 rupees? It makes no sense. Just get a gadda. मैं वहाँ पे जाके बनवा सकती हूँ तेरे लिए. At that time I argued with saying, you don't understand. This is 20 hours a day for me, right? So this is worth the investment. Must rather not buy that car, but this is important. It just didn't seem to get around it. And I just made jokes about it. But fact is, the previous generation just didn't think about this stuff. It's what we call middle class thinking, right? Like, this next generation just got indoctrinated. Let's go through examples of middle class thinking, which is a lot of the problems. One example I find is, तुम सिर्फ बहुत मेहनत करोगे फिर ही तुम्हें फल मिलेगा, which is not entirely accurate. सिर्फ मेहनत करने से फल नहीं मिलेगा. कहाँ मेहनत करोगे उससे बहुत फर्क पड़ता है. मेहनत करना ये तो obvious चीज है. Of course मेहनत करना है.
घरा भी मेहनत करता है.
हाँ, घरा भी. Correct. What are the other middle class things that we often have? We're doing a crash course. This is supposed to be 10 episodes.
The big one, middle class mentality, is log kya kahenge?
Log kya kahenge?
It is just ingrained in us. It is absolutely ingrained in us that constantly look at what the world has done for you to create your own path. The world will define your success and your failure. तुमने अगर 25 तक नौकरी नहीं ली, failure. 30 तक शादी नहीं हुई, failure. 35 तक घर नहीं आया, failure. 40 तक इटली नहीं गए, failure. 45 तक ये नहीं हुआ, about failure, like just fucking stamp after stamp after stamp after stamp, and we just subject ourselves, like we never even question. That is insane. Then iski kya zarurat thi, which is
in context of
in context of anything that you like. At least personally, I feel this. If I were to do anything for my mom and dad when it comes to money, the instant reply is iski kya zarurat thi. And it's not, they're not being like nice about it. They're not being like, oh, iski kya zarurat thi. They're literally like, iski kya zarurat thi. Why would you spend on pleasuring or making things easier for you? Iski kya zarurat thi. Here's one thing that is fascinating. India somehow is completely comfortable living perpetually in pain.
What a great sentence.
Yeah, and that starts with physical pain itself.
India is Hasinder.
It's Hasinder. It is Hasinder. It is Hasinder. And that's how we rationalize it. It is Hasinder. The dard is like, we take that seriously. That if you feel pain, that means you're fucking alive. No, that was just a fucktard philosopher, drunk and speaking there. You don't have to be perpetually in pain. Like my mom constantly kahin dard ho raha hai, ye ho raha hai. I'm like, the world is evolved. Itna kuch ho sakta hai ab. Karao. Like fix ho sakti hain cheezein. Nahi, theek hai. Iski kya zarurat hai? Jee lenge. Yeah, it's just and then mental agony, social pain, psychological pain. We're just completely okay.
Yeah, we love.
We just love it.
Romanticizing pain.
Yeah. Dal mein kuch kala hai. I love that shit. I love that shit. When
it's called Kali Dal, guys. Yes. That's what it is.
When people ask me where does India's mistrust come from, I like, it's because of this shit. Dal mein kuch kala hai. We have grown up believing.
This sentence, India's mistrust. This is the whole conversation.
Oh, that's a whole.
Yeah, but continue.
Yeah, it's we constantly believe that the person opposite to us is out there to fuck us.
Correct.
We have to be the smarter one. We have to be on the guard. We have to watch out for ourselves. No one's going to do that, and that's why we don't have a first approach ever. It's very, very simple there. It comes from the fact that
it's a byproduct of the colonial.
It's years and years of limited opportunities, massive supply of people who seek those opportunities. Go back to the 1917 and 80s. It's like you made it to IITs not just because you were smart, but because the one smarter to you had fever that day. You literally had to kill someone to be on top of them. It was always a zero-sum game.
Love it. Trust is maths.
Trust is maths. Right?
Trust is maths.
It was always a zero-sum game. It was always a zero-sum game.
Like in Singapore में अगर आप McDonald's में जाओगे और आप एक glass ऐसे बस Coke ले सकते हो. It just blew my mind the first time I went there. There's 2 glasses of Coke and then I was like, no one is here to monitor me how much Coke I'm taking. What the fuck is going on? Then I went again and I got another glass of Coke. As the trust is math, it doesn't matter how many Coke you take. In the long run, they're winning. So they're like, take how much ever you want. You will only continue drinking Coke. It's maths. And India, unfortunately, the math is tough.
It is. It is very tough.
You said that. When maths makes life so difficult for you, obviously you're not going to trust life entirely because mathematically you're likely to get the bad deal.
The bad deal. Oh, probabilistically, we're fighting the odds. We're always fighting the odds. It fascinates me, man. It's fascinating. Mistrust in India. So when we launched Groupon in India, so Groupon in the US had a very clear playbook. Go to the best restaurant, spa and salon, get a great deal, put it on the website. That's it. Khatam, right? The world will just fucking follow you.
लेकिन दाल में क्या काला है अंकुर?
बस तो फिर हमने like अब हमने गया और like लाए सारे वो 5-star hotels and ये सब वगैरह वगैरह बहुत बढ़िया सी discount वगैरह लाए and then we like switched it on the website's live Groupon India and we were like fuck high-fiving, we're gonna make this. People came, they saw and they left. They just fucking left. And we were perplexed. We're like, what the fuck is going on?
Such a great deal. Why won't you take it?
This is such a great deal. And then
where's
we were
the catch, buddy?
Where's the catch in there, man? Where is the catch? What's going to happen? Are they going to fuck us? This deal is fake. They're going to serve us bad food, yesterday's food, put us into that corner where only the lowly class go and hang out.
Do I have to get slapped if I want this paneer? What is going on?
I know.
This concern that shouldn't exist.
Correct. Like, कोई placard लेके खड़ा हो गया, आ गए चिंदी चोर. वैसे वाले तो like it was just insane. So we had to just solve for that and fix it and fix it and fix it.
How did you solve for?
You solve for trust by associating yourself with people who are trusted already.
Which is why Amitabh Bachchan will endorse products.
Celebrity endorsement as a percentage of total advertising is one of the highest in India.
Interesting. One of the highest. India as a country spends the most.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Because we are a faith-based, low-trust country. So हमारा belief ये है, जो हमारे माँ बाप ने हमें बताया, कि अगर तुम जिंदगी में अच्छा काम करोगे, तो तुम्हारे साथ अच्छी चीजें होंगी. तुम झूठ नहीं बोलोगे, तुम गाली नहीं दोगे, तुम किसी का खून नहीं करोगे, किसी को लात नहीं मारोगे, ये सब तो तुम्हारे साथ अच्छी चीजें. That's the belief we grew up.
And अगर आप गाली देते हो, तो आप बुरे इंसान. It's just some things are this is good and this is bad.
बिल्कुल.
Just set ना है.
Tuesday को non-veg खाना मतलब तुम पापी पापी हो,
Papi,
right?
correct. I
तुम्हारे
enjoy the smile on my face while this is being discussed.
So we have come to associate success with being good.
Yeah.
Not hard work, not fucking just slogging it out. We like we being good. And that's why we love celebrities, because celebrities then are a replica for us of being good. Why would you build temples for Rajnikant? Why would you pour milk on his whatever
Correct.
statue and so on,
Statue,
on his
yeah.
like why? Because you've come to believe that guy
He's so nice that only God can be that nice.
Yeah, God has been nice to him. So if we get associated with Rajnikant in that way, maybe something will spill over. So we did our replica of celebrity endorsements, which was all the top places that we work with at Groupon. We went in there and we recorded videos of the chefs, the general managers, saying that no, we're doing this for this reason. We love this. This is why it works.
Just CEO खड़ा हो गया ad में business model लेके, देखो भाई business model ये है, अगर आप करोगे हमको भी पैसा मिलेगा.
होम शॉप 18 का हमने पूरा एड बनाया था, पूरा मिडनाइट को चलाने वाला.
This is why a lot of brands also, newspaper ads make sense for that reason. Television ads make sense for that reason, because अगर आप टीवी पे दिख रहे हो मतलब आप पे भरोसा है. सिर्फ जो आदमी has made it, only those companies traditionally would advertise on TV which have high trust. That's why TV advertising got high trust. You know, if you are on Indian team's jersey, means you are legit, because traditionally only legitimate companies were on jerseys. So now this is a country that severely operates on signals of trust.
And it results in two things. Anyone who acquires trust can get disproportionate returns. So we're willing to buy namak from Tata, phones from Tata, houses from Tata, airlines from Tata, matrimony भी चलाएंगे तो वो भी कर लेंगे, कुछ भी, right? Tata है तो भाई Tata है, right? चलेगा. In the US, you can actually have someone who's just really good at their shit come up and become an expert in that vertical. India is a land of horizontal. People spend insane amount of money to gather the trust of individuals, and now they can sell them anything. Flipkart's going to always rule, and Paytm is always going to rule. There's no reason why one shouldn't come and disrupt a vertical of theirs and so on. But it's like, it's like कुछ भी बना रहे हैं, हर रोज एक नया product launch, हर रोज.